Will this California road trip help the Habs snap their losing streak? And is this team soft? We'll talk about this and more on Hockey Inside Out. Hello and welcome to another edition of Hockey Inside Out. I am your host, Jessica Rusnak. Joining me this week on the panel, we've got Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette. We have former NHLer, Stanley Cup champ, and former assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens, Rick Green. And we have Andrew Berkshire, program director at Game Over on SDPN Sports. So this week's question, we get right into it from a viewer. The Duffer99 wrote to us and said that he found the Canadiens were very soft, that they weren't hitting and that they were easy to play against. Then on Saturday, after the game against the Boston Bruins, coach Martin St. Louis called his team soft. Do you think that's a fair label for this team? What do you think about this? Are they a soft team to play against? Stu, we'll get you to start us off this week.
I think against the Bruins, did they play soft? Yes. Are they a soft team? I don't think so. I think they were just overmatched and overwhelmed a bit. I mean, the Bruins came at them in waves, similar as when they played Vegas at the Bell Center. These are two of the top teams in the NHL. They just come at you and come at you and come at you. And the Canadiens are a young, inexperienced team. And Marty St. Louis also said after the game that they showed too much respect to the Bruins. I think it's just a sign of how far the Canadiens are away in this rebuilding process of becoming a legitimate playoff team. Teams like Boston, when the Canadiens are playing at their best, they can compete with other teams. They can beat other teams. They beat the Bruins in overtime at the Bell Center the week before. But when they're not at their very best, and another team is, that's when you see the problems really are really highlighted. And they were a little soft. I mean, I think they were like deer caught in the headlights a little bit with the way the Bruins just kept coming at them, and they didn't have a response. But for Marty St. Louis to say that, for a coach to say, he said they were a little soft, for a team to use the soft word, or a coach to use the soft word against his players, that sends a pretty strong message and should be a bit of a wake-up call. So, but I don't think they're a soft team. I just think that they were just outmatched and overwhelmed and sort of, like I said, sort of deer in the headlights a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't think, it's time to label them as soft. I mean, we've seen them perform in other games, like Stu said, that they competed, they showed up, and, they weren't that easy to play against because everybody was, buying in and doing what they're supposed to do. And, they looked intimidated against Boston. They looked like we were doing a lot of watching, obviously, instead of doing. But the reality is, if you look at their roster, they're a highly skilled team. They're fast. They play with energy. But if you look at guys that are going to show up and give you that grittiness, like an Anderson, Gallagher tries, not that big, but he does try. Evans, he'll try, but that's inconsistent. Back on the blue line, Jack Guy, Gooley, these kind of guys. But the rest of the guys, they like to play that high-speed, skilled, don't touch me type of game. And, it's tough when you see some of those guys that are supposed to perform and are not performing, and you wonder as a coach, you scratch your head, okay, what do I do now? How do I push the right buttons to get them back to understand the desperation that they need to have each and every game to have any success? And, I think that they're aware of it. It's been addressed, and now it's up. They've got some character. It's up to them to respond, and I think that this was an unfortunate game from a standpoint that Boston took it to them in so many areas, but they have shown that they have bounced back and they have responded, and I believe that they will respond to the message that Martin St. Louis has given them.
Yeah, I think labeling them as soft is a little bit unfair. I think, as Stu and Rick both said, when they're on their game, they play a pretty high energy, high physicality game. The game against Boston a week ago, or a week and a little bit ago, they were played extremely physical. They actually were much more physical than the Boston Bruins in that game, and that's kind of what turned the game around. There's that shift from Michael Bozzetta where he got an excellent scoring chance and then just destroyed someone. Kovacevic had laid a huge hit on Brad Marchand. Xhekaj was hitting players all over the ice. But when they're not on their game, it's very evident, and this is kind of the problem with rebuilding teams, right? Is you can play a game like they did against the Boston Bruins a week and a bit ago, and they have to work so hard to beat a team like the Bruins in the way that they did. They can't give that kind of performance every night. It's just not capable. Like, nobody is capable of working that hard 82 times a year. It's just not going to happen. No team does that. They don't have the talent level or the roster in general to consistently compete with those teams. I think the thing that frustrated people so much against the Bruins on Saturday night this week was not only did they not play well, I don't think the Boston Bruins played that well either. They held the puck and controlled the puck very well, but if you look at their shots in that game, almost everything from a dangerous area was along the ice, or a point shot looking for tips, or like they get some height on some shots from bad angles, a lot of bad angle shots. So they got really lucky that the score wasn't significantly worse against Boston. And I think that's what made it even worse, right? Is Boston's not really on their game shooting wise. That's a winnable game if you can get the energy going a little bit in the intermission there after the first period was so bad, but they couldn't get anything working. And that's frustrating. That's soft. Getting to puck second all the time. That's soft play. That's not wanting to be there. And after the way that they played against Boston the week before, it's just hard for people to look at that and understand exactly what's going on. And that's the frustrating part of being in a rebuild. Some games you get that team, and some games you get the team that never quits and shows you, like a hint of what they can be in the future. You just kind of have to ride the middle a little bit and adjust your expectations.
Well, two of the best games the Canadiens have played this year were the first game against Vegas in Vegas and the first game against Boston. They lost in a shootout to Vegas. They won in overtime against Boston. So even when the Canes play at their best, they still have to go to overtime or a shootout before a decision was made. I think also in Boston, missing Arber Xhekaj, I think, was big. I think his physical presence makes everybody else on the team, maybe an inch taller and 10 or 15 pounds heavier. I think that's one of the reasons we saw Jayden Struble called up from Laval. Physical presence, big guy. He had a wicked fight in Laval just a couple of games before he got called up. Just a physical presence, likes to play a physical game. So I think that's a big reason why Struble was the first defenseman called up after Jordan Harris who's going to be out now indefinitely with an injury. So it'd be interesting to see how Struble does. I imagine he's going to play these games on the West Coast, so it'll be interesting to see how physical of a game he brings.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that as well. With Arber Xhekaj out of the lineup, how do you think this is going to affect the Montreal Canadiens, seeing that they won't be able to have the physicality that he's able to bring? Rick?
It hurts the team. He's the kind of guy that the opposition doesn't like to see in the lineup because they know there's going to be no free ride once they get into that zone, and you better keep your head up and be aware. And that's that's contagious, that kind of play. And when they have him in the lineup, he's the go-to guy when it comes to sending a message at the right time, which a lot of opposition members don't want to try him because he's proven that in the past. But just that type of ingredient back there in the blue line makes the whole group better and keeps the opposition thinking and, a little more concerned that he's in the lineup. So that, unfortunately, is part of the game, but he's going to be missed because he does bring a lot of respect to the overall team game, and he just makes the opposition accountable for taking liberties and doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, the injuries are really piling up to the guys that bring that physical game too. Like missing Kirby Dach for this long, he's a guy that really pushes the envelope, especially on the forecheck. He's willing to take hits to make plays. He physically dominates his opponents in a lot of ways. To a lesser extent in terms of team impact, but still in leadership, they're missing David Savard, a guy who at times will break some wood over a guy's back. He's a guy that is tough to play against, even if he's maybe on for a lot of goals against. And then you add Xhekaj to the mix. It's just over and over again, the guys who you need to be there to bring that tough quality of game are out of the lineup. And then you have guys like Josh Anderson, who it's kind of tough for opponents to take seriously right now because, he can play physical, but he's not accomplishing anything. So it's easy to kind of ignore Josh Anderson as a physical element out there because he's not really involved in the play. He's not getting goals. He's not setting up goals. He's not creating entries. So it becomes necessary for the team to play team toughness game, right? You got to have Cole Caulfield out there looking like a bee bouncing off guys. You got to have everybody buying in. And that's tough to do on a rebuilding team on a consistent basis, to have everyone buying into having ice packs on their shoulders and their knees and their hips at the end of the game.
The game against Boston, Anderson wasn't that much of a physical presence, and he had been up to that point this season, finishing his checks. I think, obviously, there was 0 goals in 18 games is getting to him. I think it's getting in his head, and we're starting to see it affect different parts of his game. So the earlier he can score, the better for him and the better for the team. But, go back to Struble coming up. I remember when the Canadiens drafted him in 2019 in Vancouver, I was at that draft, and they drafted Cole Caulfield in the first round, and Caulfield walked up beside me. I'm like 6'3", and I went, oh my God, this kid's small. He's going to get killed. And then they drafted Struble in the second round, and he walked by me. I'm like, oh my God, this kid is huge. He was, and
he's going to kill you.
He was in the locker room after practice Monday, and he's ripped. He's built like an NFL defensive back. And going back to the NHL Combine ahead of the 2019 draft, in the fitness testing or the strength testing, he finished first in the bench press. He finished first in grip strength with both hands, and he finished first in the standing long jump and in one of the Wingate bike events. So this kid's an athlete. He played in the Little League World Series, and he's a physical presence. He's a big, strong, tough kid. And the other thing I admire about him, he's wearing a neck guard. He said he wore it after that the sad death in England with that one player. He said he put it on. He tried it for a couple of games. He said he doesn't really even notice it now. So maybe more players will follow his lead in that. And here's a tough guy, not afraid to put on a neck guard. So I think that sends a strong message to other players around the league.
Yeah, to go with what you were saying, Stu, Jayden Struble's nickname on Habs Twitter is Greek God.
Yeah. Oh, he's ripped. I mean, he's as I said, he looks like an NFL defensive back. He's muscle on muscle, and he was like that when they drafted him. He looks a little leaner now, like his body fat is not very high. He said he's an athlete who plays hockey, and he's got a little bit of a mean streak to him too. And I think the Canadiens need that right now, especially after their coach said they played a little soft.
And I mean, to me, there's not much fighting going on in the game anymore. So it's not like the team should be on guard that they're going to end up fighting if they play an aggressive style of play as far as, getting involved. And what's disappointing as a coach is not seeing the response to, opposition dominating you in a lot of areas. And you'd like to see somebody, maybe it's just out of character for some guys, or they don't necessarily show it when they should, is, I know, I'm upset at what's going on, and maybe I'm going to push a guy instead of always accepting it. And we saw this years ago when we used to discuss about, well, why doesn't anybody get upset with what's going on? It's a big problem in the way that you don't see enough guys getting upset and showing that I'm not accepting this anymore, and have a little pushback, if you will. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond.
And we've talked a little bit about some of the players that are out, but also there's Jordan Harris. He's out indefinitely. You got Raphael Harvey-Pinard out 6 to 8 weeks. It just kind of seems that the Canadiens can't find a cure for the injury bug. Brendan Gallagher said, this is a physical game. This is what happens. But it just seems that the Canadiens are just so unlucky with losing key players and being out. Rick, is there any way to avoid having all these injuries pile up on a team?
It really is. It's a tough thing to define. Injury bug. I mean, it's frustrating to see that there's no longer those injuries where the guy's out for a week or 10 days, right? It's all long-term stuff. To put your finger on why, I don't really get it, other than some of it's bad luck, which we've heard before. But listen, it is a factor. Every team deals with it. It's not just Montreal. Every team gets injuries. It's how you handle, how you respond to it. But, with that being said, it does throw a little bit of a wrench into maybe some success that you're having as far as combinations go, and getting on a little bit of a roll through chemistry and stability in your combinations. And this is all part of it, and this is a learning curve that a lot of guys are hopefully learning from and understanding what they need to do to make things better. So it's a long year. They're going to have ups and downs like everybody, and to understand why injuries are happening, it's really unfortunate, but it's part of the game, and you have to find a way to get through it. And other guys are going to be given opportunity, and then see what they can do and take advantage of it.
Well, Graham Reinben, the Canadiens' longtime athletic therapist who got fired this summer after the Canadiens set NHL records for man game losses in each of the last 2 seasons, must be sitting at home now and saying, see, it wasn't my fault. And it's a physical game. Guys get hurt. But we've seen similar to what we saw in the past. Harvey Pinard was hurt. He came back. He played a bit. Then he was out again. He came back, and now he's out long term. Same with Jordan Harris. He was hurt. He came back. He played a bit. He came back again. Monday, they said it was a therapy day for him. He made the trip to California. They got to California, and then they realized he can't play. They sent them back. So it's, as you said, Rick, every team deals with it. But the Canadiens just is like, it's basically, they're just unlucky. I mean, Kirby Dach gets checked into the boards. It didn't look like that hard of a hit, and he blew out his knee. If David Savard blocks a slap shot with his hand, you can't, it's the only way to avoid that is tell him not to block shots, but that's a big part of his game. So I think they've just been really unlucky, and you have to think at some point their luck changes because it's just one guy after another going down, and it's 3 years in a row now that's been happening.
And these guys are finely tuned, conditioned athletes, right? There's not much weakness when it comes down to their overall strength and everything that goes with it. But man, oh man, it's unfortunate they have to deal with this. Okay, who's up next? And wait another 6 or 8 weeks rather than 6 or 7 days.
On the bright side, I guess, Sean Monahan and Brendan Gallagher have been able to stay healthy so far. Those are two guys that big question marks on them coming into the season as far as how long they'd be able to stay healthy.
Yeah, don't jinx that.
You have the cure for the injury bug.
No, I think the guys are right here. It is just bad luck to start the season. I'm a little bit questioning of Harris and Harvey Pinard coming back early because it seemed like at first they were trying to be cautious with those two. I hope that we're just in a situation where the Canadiens are being overly cautious with holding guys out and not risking things in a year that doesn't really matter in terms of competitiveness. The team should also be a little bit more capable of weathering the storm of injuries this year. They have much more depth in Laval than they had last year, especially NHL-ready depth. The one thing that I hope doesn't happen for the Canadiens is that an injury forces the call-up of Joshua Waugh early. I'm hoping that they go to other players first, simply because he's playing so well. The confidence is at such a high. I want to see him get at least half of an AHL season before he sees NHL ice. And when he's up for good, not just as an emergency thing where he's up and maybe struggles a little bit and plays on the fourth line. I don't want that. We had enough of that under Bergevin. I want the prospects to be given a chance to succeed, and I hope that that's the plan.
Well,
Andrew,
go ahead, Rick.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, Andrew, I'm very happy to hear you not mention Armia's name.
Leah Sanderson first.
Well, Philip Massar, the Canadiens' second first-round pick in 2022, when they took Slafkovsky, number 1 overall, had a hat trick Tuesday night in the OHL, and that's a kid. He really wanted to be in Laval this year. He didn't. They went back to junior last year. The Canadiens basically almost promised him that he would just go for 1 year and then play in Laval. He started in Laval this year. He obviously wasn't ready. They sent him back to junior, and now we're seeing he's in a league where he's ready to produce. And Craig Button at TSN has a great line. He says nobody should play in a league when they're not ready to play in it. And he wasn't ready to play in the AHL, and they put him down in junior. And now a hat trick, he's going to gain some more confidence. And as Andrew said with Joshua Roy, the same thing. And in hindsight, I think it would have been better to send Juraj Slafkovsky down at some point last season, at least to the World Junior Championship. But the key of development, and it's so true, when a guy's not ready to play in the league he's placed in, they're just hanging on, and it just kills confidence. And so for Massar, I'm sure as upset as he was to be sent back to junior, he's probably smiling now after realizing he's dominating now, and that's what the Canadiens wanted him to do, is go back to junior and dominate.
Yeah, I don't think many people are upset about scoring 2 points a game.
No, exactly. He's in a league where, and so now when he comes back next year, if he goes to Laval, he's going to go there with a lot of confidence. He struggled last season in the juniors, and people were writing him off and whatnot. But you got to realize, the kid who came to a new country, same as Slafkovsky, there's a lot going on, huge adjustment, and he wasn't like Slafkovsky, flying charter flights and staying in 5-star hotels. He was riding the buses in junior. That's a big adjustment for a kid who had been playing pro hockey before that in Europe. So it was nice to see him doing well now in the OHL.
Now moving on to rapid fire. After that game against the Boston Bruins, the Canadiens had the day off. And then when they returned to practice on Monday, I would say Martin St. Louis did, a modern day bag skate. He had an intense practice. for the players. I don't think anyone was too shocked by this. I think most people expected it if you were a player on the team or just a fan watching them. But what was your take on Monday's intense practice? Andrew, you want to start us off?
Yeah, usually I think bag skates are not the best option. They don't really happen very much anymore, but nowadays with how little time teams get to practice, and I understand that the NHLPA pushes that for a reason. These guys deserve time off. I kind of was for it on this one. The fact that they followed up probably their worst game of the year against the Las Vegas Golden Knights with a non-effort game against the Boston Bruins, they needed a bit of a wake-up call. Those kinds of games, it's not even about talent level, because at this level, even if you're the worst team in the league, you can stay in games. That was about effort level. So a little bit of a wake-up call for me. That was the right call from Marty St. Louis.
Yeah, the players realized it too, talking to them after practice. I mean, it was sort of a bag skate. It was a really hard, intense practice. I know on Twitter I posted a video of the skate at the end, and people would say, oh, they're not skating that hard. Well, they were already exhausted before they started that part of the skate. It was a hard, physical practice, a lot of one-on-one battles. And at the end, Marty was just sort of sending a message. It was like he skated them for a good 5-10 minutes of sort of up and down type of things. And it was just, and Marty's not, he's a very positive coach. The players like him. They respect him. He usually handles his players sort of with kid gloves. He doesn't lose his cool much. And that was just a sign of he had seen enough. And he was sending a message to them. Like, if you guys aren't going to work on the ice, I'm going to make you work extra hard in practice. And the players talking to me afterwards, they weren't shocked. They said they sort of deserved it. And Marty St. Louis said, the players had probably expected it showing up that day, and the younger guys who maybe didn't expect it were probably told by the older guys, we're going to skate today, so be ready for this.
Put on some extra deodorant.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule, like the guys talked about, it's tough to fit practice time in, let alone an opportunity to, send the message that they like to send. And, it's always that gray area as a coach when you look at your team and you go, wow, how can I get them to perform better? Do I need to give them more? Do I need to give them less? And it's a little bit of a crapshoot when it comes down to what you need to do. But what it does do is send that message mentally that the type of effort that they had given is not acceptable. It's just a little bit of a wake-up call that, guys, we don't need to see that type of group effort anymore. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to work. And, I'm quite sure that the guys appreciate or understand where Martin St. Louis is coming from. And, it was the time to do it.
Rick, what was the worst bag skate you got put through as a player?
Bob Berry at Gadbois. We lost to Detroit the night before by about, which, believe it or not, was unheard of. Like, we lost, I think, 7-1 or something. We were pitiful. And so we went to the Gadbois the next day, and there were no pucks to be seen on the bench. So everybody's going, okay, we're in trouble. So basically, he had us going for over an hour of nonstop to the point where we took the ice right down to the concrete, and they had to cancel all the minor hockey for the rest of the year. I remember that one as the most painful, although I did get a good sweat.
I'm surprised with how things have gone lately that they haven't tried a bag skate with only one skate blade. Seems like they can't keep those things in anyway. Have Gallagher show them all how it's done.
Or start practicing that at practices. It seems to happen so often. How to get back to the bench with one skate blade.
You never used to see that. Now it's like, oh, this guy's got blew a tire. And
not with those old Lang skates you used to wear, Rick.
Yeah, really. They just exploded. Those things. They would tear apart.
I love how you didn't even hesitate there, Rick. You knew exactly which one has stuck with you over the years.
We talked about that for a little while. So yeah.
We know that line changes happen quite often throughout the year. Were you surprised when Martin St. Louis decided to break up that veteran line of Monahan, Gallagher, and Pearson?
No.
Go ahead.
No, I thought it was the time had come. The line wasn't playing as well together. They weren't getting the scoring anymore. Monahan's actually been struggling a little bit lately at even strength, so trying to get a new look makes sense. And I think the team sees Brendan Gallagher and Sean Monahan as play drivers. So having them both on the same line can kind of limit them a little bit. And I think they're trying to get other lines going and get some chemistry working, because so far this season it's only been, for the most part, one line going at a time. Either it's the top line or the old guys line, not really the second line. But I think right now overall, the the line they put back together with Slafkovsky, Caulfield, and Dvorak has been the best looking line over the last week or so.
Yeah, now the new line that Marty St. Louis had at practice Tuesday in Anaheim with Suzuki, with Newhook, and Gallagher. It'll be interesting to see how that line does, especially Gallagher getting a chance to play with two skilled guys. I think he'll help them just the way he drives to the net and whatnot. But I mean, with the veteran line there, Marty St. Louis was really reluctant to break them up because they had played so well together. But at the time he did break them up, Pearson had gone 12 games without a goal, Monahan had gone 7 games without a goal, and Gallagher had 1 goal in 6 games. So it was time to do something, just not only to shake them up, but also to try and get some of the other lines going. It'd be interesting to see how Gallagher plays with Suzuki and Monahan. I'm really interested to see that on this California road trip.
And I think it's just a classic example. When you're struggling, things aren't happening. You have to start to change up the status quo, and you got to move some pieces around. Maybe you'll look brilliant by the end of the winning streak or not, but you have to try something. And I think it's a case of Martin St. Louis trying to take away maybe a certain ingredient on one line that's going to bring in to another line that's going to complement. So they have some moving pieces that they can move about and see if they can't get their offensive game back going, because obviously that's the only way that they're going to find a way to win hockey games, is get some guys to do some scoring and get back to the way that they were playing before.
Yeah, I was more surprised that St. Louis he split up Caulfield and Suzuki for 5 games, and he put them back together for the Boston game, and now he's splitting them up again, or at least he did in practice in Anaheim. Caulfield, I think, has 1 goal now in the last 11 games going into the game against Anaheim, and only 1 goal at 5-on-5 all season. So I'm surprised that he's still keeping Caulfield away from Suzuki. Maybe he thinks they're too predictable together, and teams seem to be figuring out how to shut down Caulfield, how they're keeping an eye on him on that spot he likes to score from. So if Caulfield can't get going and can't start scoring goals, it's going to be hard for this team to win. He's the only real legitimate goal scorer that this team has.
I actually see a little bit differently. I think that the way they're managing Caulfield and Suzuki right now, Caulfield's getting chances this year at a higher rate than last year. He's also better defensively this year. I think they're realizing that they don't necessarily need to keep those two together for them each to have individual success, and they're trying to spread some wealth through the lineup. And Caulfield's obviously been unlucky, but he is getting those chances. I think eventually he is going to start scoring here, and the goals will come in waves. But one thing to watch for that top line with Gallagher on it is they are really cleverly managing Gallagher's minutes this season, even playing a bigger role than he has in the last couple. He's playing about 12 to 13 minutes a night. So if they're trailing late in games, I wouldn't be surprised to see that top line get more ice time and have some shifts with Sean Monahan up there, and they shorten the bench a little bit, and it'll be the third line instead of the fourth line that comes out.
Yeah, I wonder if at some point, I know it's hard now with Kirby Dach out, like, do they put Caulfield and Suzuki with Monahan? That would obviously mean putting Newhook back at center. That didn't work out so great when he was there earlier in the season, but so they got to get Caulfield going. They got to get some goals out of this guy.
Now, earlier in the episode, we talked about the injuries that the Canadiens are dealing with. If you were part of the coaching staff, what would be your plan to deal with the injuries when it comes to the defensive pairings? Who would you like to see playing together? Rick, being a former defenseman and a assistant coach with the Canadiens, we'll get you to start us off with who you would put together.
Well, I scratched down, big scratch down. Matheson and Barron, I like those two together. With a little bit of concern that somebody has to be accountable for making sure that they know when to play defense, because Justin Barron, as we all know, he likes to get up the ice, but Matheson is smart enough to realize that if he's up the ice, he better be careful not to get caught up the ice also. But I think they complement each other. Gulli and Kovacevic, have no problem with those guys doing the job. They seem to, Kovacevic keeps it simple, always kind of protecting Gulli from the standpoint that he's there as a guy that's going to bail him out in the event that he gets caught up ice, which is not a problem in my books. And then Struble, I guess you can go back with the two kids, Struble, Lindstrom, two young guys that, it's not a bad thing to have them pair together and not necessarily be intimidated a little bit from not that they have tons of experience back there, but, guys that have played together at the American League. So, they're somewhat of the good news is that they've got some guys that are capable of playing. Now it's a matter of delivering it, and we'll see soon enough on this road trip.
Yeah, it seems like Matheson's tendency to risk take kind of pushes Justin Barron to play a little bit more carefully. But I don't know what the issue is, but it seems like Justin Barron needs to get a little bit of a taller stick blade. I've never seen a guy have the puck hop over a stick more than Justin Barron.
Yeah, well, I like Matheson and Barron together too. Barron, after two back-to-back rough training camps after the Canes acquired him, he's starting to show us now why he was a first-round draft pick of Colorado and why he's the guy the Canes wanted when they traded Arturi Lehkonen. He's looking more confident. I think he has a good pairing with Matheson. Goulet and Kovacevic work well together. And then the third pairing, it comes down to left-hand shot, right-hand shot, right? I mean, Lidstrom's the only right-hand shot there, so I think he's going to be in the lineup. I think we're going to see Struble. I think they want to give him a chance, and then Struble and Norlinder both left-hand shots. The fact Struble was the first guy called up from Laval after Jordan Harris was hurt leads me to believe he'll be the guy in that spot to start, and then we'll see how he does, but at least they got two left-hand shots. But the fact Lindstrom's a right-hand shot, I think that gives him the edge on that third line to play, maybe rotating with the other two guys who are both lefties.
Andrew, who's your pairings that you got?
Oh, I like Rick's pairings. I think the issue is they've got two young kids, right? So that to hide them both, it's going to be tough. I would assume that they might split up Goulet and Kovacevic to kind of insulate Struble and Norlinder a little bit. But the top four right now is very clearly the top four, right?
They might be getting some. The top four guys might be getting double shifted a little bit too. I think they'll be.
Yeah, I'd expect 24, 25-minute nights for pretty much everybody in the top four.
And trying to coach and get the proper ice time to those guys, with young kids, you gotta give them an opportunity, but you can't put them in a situation that maybe ends up a little bit over their head and hurting their confidence, so to speak. But you got to give them a chance to see how they handle themselves, because you might get a pleasant surprise or not. But the potential is there that, some of these kids, normal growing pains, but give them a chance to play. I like to see more of them.
Hey, Rick, I know Chris Chelios was the guy you didn't like playing with. Who did you like playing with the most?
I liked, the Big Bird was kind of fun because we could basically cover 3/4 of the blue line when we put our sticks down. So that was an advantage. That means I didn't have to skate that much. But, between him and good old Peter Sabota, a guy that just mobile and fun guy to play with. So had a good time with those guys.
Now, I think there's always a good time to head to California. But if you're a member of the Montreal Canadiens right now, you leave Montreal on a losing streak. Do you think that this road trip comes at a good time for the Canadiens? I believe they're going to be having their rookie night on Saturday after the game against the LA Kings. How do you find the timing of this road trip? Andrew, you want to tell us how you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's a good time for the team. It's a team that, they're in the process of building an identity still. That no quit attitude is part of it, but you've got to be a little bit more than that. It's a really bad time to get called up for Struble and Norlinder. You get called up for your first cup of coffee and suddenly it's the rookie dinner.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks.
There's not a lot of rookies to split the bill.
Yeah, that's the thing too. So it's a rough one for them, but I'm sure they're really happy to be getting a shot at the NHL here. So it'll help them mentally after the hurt to the wallet. But it is a good time to gel a little bit, get away from the focus of the fans, the media a little bit, especially the late games. You can work on your game, figure things out without being under the spotlight. I think it is a good time, but if they keep losing in bad ways, then it's not going to be a good time. So in retrospect, it might not be.
I'd say it might be a good time for Struble to accidentally, on purpose, forget his credit card in his hotel room when they go out for that rookie dinner. I mean, he's been making AHL money and not that long. It could be a real dent on the credit card bill there. But the timing is great. I thought that when I woke up Wednesday morning and saw snow on the ground, what a great time to be in California. Sean Monahan actually spoke about that after practice Monday, too, thinking it's a good time. Team's struggling. It's good to get away and just be together and eliminate all the outside sort of family distractions you deal with on a day-to-day basis when you're at home. So I think the timing is good. One of the weird things about this trip is that 2 of the 3 games are in the afternoon because of the U.S. Thanksgiving weekend. It's a late game in Anaheim, and then it's afternoon games Friday in San Jose and Saturday in L.A. So that's going to throw the rhythm. Like, be no morning skates. It won't be a regular California trip, but as Marty St. Louis said, it's the same for both teams, and just got to go out there and play hockey.
Well, it won't take long for us to realize whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, obviously, to get out there, because there are a couple things to do in California, if I recall correctly. But it's not bad for the team to get on the road. The home team also has issues with, they've got family starting to come in town. There's Christmas, Thanksgiving. There's a lot of things that go on, and I remember. Try to keep the guys focused, home team focused on, we got to play hockey first. But it is an issue when it comes down to the home team having a lot of things that are going on off the ice at this time of year. So we'll see whether the Canadiens can take advantage of, first of all, the message that was sent from their last loss and finding a way to get their game back and play with that desperation that gave them success before.
All right, well, we'll pick up on this next week and see how the California road trip was for the Montreal Canadiens. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Hockey Inside Out. Don't forget to like and subscribe the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. Sign up for the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. You just have to go to montrealgazette.com/newsletter. And of course, visit the Montreal Gazette for all the daily Habs coverage.